My ex-husband choked on his champagne when I handed him the business card with my name and CEO beneath it. "You bought Horizon Tech? That's impossible," he stammered, as his trophy wife's smile froze in place. "Not bought," I corrected him. "Founded. The company that just acquired your firm? That's mine. By the way, I love your new house. My guest house is about that size." His face when I invited them both to my housewarming and they saw my $2.5 million estate was absolutely priceless. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. That moment of perfect justice still brings a smile to my face whenever I remember it. The shocked expression on Derek's face as he stood in my marble foyer, taking in the soaring ceilings and custom chandeliers that dwarfed the home he'd been so proud to show off on social media. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand the sweetness of that victory, you need to know how it all began. 3 years earlier, I was Olivia Mercer, a woman who believed she was living her best life. I'd put my own career ambitions on hold to support my husband's rise through the corporate ranks at Pinnacle Investments. "We're a team," Derek would say, his arm wrapped around my waist at company functions. "Your support at home is what makes my success possible." And I believed him, foolishly thinking our 15 years of marriage meant something. Our story had begun in college, me with dreams of launching my own tech company, him with plans to conquer Wall Street. We'd met in an economics class where my analytical abilities consistently earned higher grades than his, something he'd found both intimidating and attractive. "Your brain is sexy," he'd told me on our third date. We'd be unstoppable together. The irony of those words wouldn't become clear until much later. Our modest apartment gradually gave way to a comfortable suburban home as Derek climbed the corporate ladder. His salary grew, and so did his demands on my time. Entertaining clients, organizing charity events that boosted his professional image, maintaining the perfect home that served as a backdrop for his success story. My own dreams of entrepreneurship faded into vague someday plans. When the time is right, I'd tell myself, allowing another year to slip away as I played the role of corporate wife. I kept my skills sharp by freelancing occasionally, designing software solutions that others took credit for while I remained invisible behind the scenes. Derek would pat my hand dismissively when I shared my latest project. "That's nice, honey. Did you confirm the reservations for dinner with the Hendersons? The VP will be there." The first warning signs appeared at Pinnacle's holiday gala. I'd spent weeks preparing, selecting the perfect dress, memorizing the names and interests of everyone Derek needed to impress. I was applying lipstick in the ladies' room when I overheard 2 women at the sink. "Did you see her? Rachel Winters? The new wealth management director?" Gorgeous, single, and definitely has her eyes on Derek Mercer. Poor Olivia has no idea. She's still picking out curtains while her husband's moving on. I stepped out of the stall, forcing a pleasant smile as their conversation abruptly halted. Looking back, I should have confronted Derek that night. Instead, I convinced myself they were just spreading malicious gossip. Derek wouldn't throw away 15 years of marriage. He wouldn't betray me after everything I'd sacrificed. 3 months later, on a rainy Tuesday that should have been completely unremarkable, I found the receipt. It was nestled between credit card statements in the mail, a jewelry store purchase for a diamond bracelet I'd never received. The date coincided with our anniversary, yet Derek had claimed work emergencies had prevented any celebration. When confronted, he'd promised to make it up to me later. That later never came, and now I knew why. The bracelet existed, just not for me. I wish I could say I immediately packed my bags, but denial is a powerful force. Instead, I convinced myself there must be an explanation. Perhaps it was a surprise he hadn't given me yet. Maybe it was for his mother's upcoming birthday. I tucked the receipt into my desk drawer and pretended I'd never seen it. Looking back, I was constructing elaborate fantasies to avoid facing the simple truth. My marriage was ending, not with dramatic fights or confessions, but with quiet betrayal and gradual abandonment. The real wake-up call came 2 weeks later. Derek returned home at midnight, reeking of expensive perfume that wasn't mine. When his phone buzzed on the nightstand at 2 a.m., the illuminated screen revealed a message that left no room for interpretation. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait for Paris next weekend. She still doesn't suspect?" I lay perfectly still, tears silently soaking my pillow as Derek mumbled a response in his half-sleep and returned to peaceful slumber. Paris. We'd always talked about going together someday. Now he was taking someone else, and they were conspiring about keeping me in the dark. Morning arrived with crushing clarity. Over coffee, I asked simply, "Who is she?" Derek's hesitation told me everything. His eyes darted to his watch, to the window, anywhere but my face. Finally, he sighed, shoulders relaxing as if relieved to shed a burden. "Her name is Rachel. She's different, Olivia. She challenges me professionally. She understands the demands of my world. And I don't? After 15 years of making your world possible?" His laugh was gentle but dismissive, as if explaining something to a child. "You've been comfortable in suburbia, hosting dinner parties and redecorating. Rachel is building something. She's ambitious, connected. Her family owns half of Boston's financial district." Each word was a precision strike against our history. Not only was I being replaced, I was being erased. My contributions diminished, my sacrifices reframed as complacency. "So it's her money," I said flatly. "Her connections." Derek had the decency to flush slightly. "It's not just that. But yes, the Winter's name opens doors even Pinnacle can't. We're planning—" "We?" The word hung between us, the final confirmation. "I want a divorce, Olivia. I'm sorry." 3 words, 15 years. Just like that. What followed was a masterclass in calculated cruelty. Derek had clearly been planning his exit strategy for months. The prenuptial agreement I'd signed in the flush of young love suddenly revealed hidden clauses. Our home had been purchased through a trust connected to his family. My freelance income over the years had been minuscule compared to his executive salary, leaving me with minimal alimony rights. "You'll get a reasonable settlement," his lawyer assured me, across a polished conference table. "Mr. Mercer isn't looking to leave you destitute." "Just homeless," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. The lawyer had the grace to look uncomfortable. "The market is strong. You'll find a suitable apartment." What neither of them counted on was my mother's voice echoing in my head. "Always have something they don't know about, Olivia. Men leave, but wisdom stays." Following her advice, I'd quietly invested the small inheritance she'd left me. Nothing that would impress Derek's wealthy new girlfriend, but enough to secure a modest rental while I figured out my next steps. The divorce proceedings moved with brutal efficiency. Derek was motivated to start his new life, and I was too shell-shocked to fight over assets I no longer wanted. They were just things, tainted by betrayal. Let him have the furniture we'd chosen together. Let him keep the vacation photos documenting a shared history he'd discarded. I wanted freedom more than objects. 6 weeks after that fateful morning conversation, I stood in an empty apartment across town, surrounded by boxes containing what remained of my married life. The bare walls echoed with my footsteps as I wandered, from room to room, trying to imagine the new life I would build here. The settlement money sat in my account, enough to maintain a middle-class existence for perhaps 2 years if I was frugal. After that, I'd need substantial income. At 42, with a resume full of gaps and volunteer work, my prospects felt limited. That night, curled on a mattress on the floor, I allowed myself one final evening of grief. I cried for the years I'd invested, for the children we'd never had, for the dreams I'd deferred until they withered. I cried until my body ached and my eyes burned, purging 15 years of Derek Mercer from my system. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. In the morning, I rose before dawn, made coffee in a chipped mug, and opened my laptop. If Rachel Winters could build something impressive enough to steal my husband, then I could damn well build something that would make them both irrelevant to my future. For the first time in years, I pulled up the business plan I'd drafted in graduate school, a platform connecting freelance tech experts with companies needing specialized solutions. The concept had evolved in my mind during all those years of quiet background work, solving problems while others took credit. Now, it would become my salvation. I called the one person who had always believed in my potential. Alexandra Chen had been my roommate in college, the one who'd stayed in tech while I'd stepped back. Now a venture capital executive, she'd repeatedly offered to look at my ideas over the years, only to be told, maybe next year, as Derek's career consistently took priority. Livy? Her voice was cautious when she answered. We hadn't spoken properly. In over a year. Another casualty of my marriage's slow collapse. I'm ready, I said simply. If your offer to review my business plan still stands. About damn time, she replied, and I could hear her smile through the phone. Send it over. But fair warning, I'm going to tear it apart before we build it back better. True to her word, Alexandra's feedback was brutally honest. The core concept remained sound, but my market analysis was outdated, my revenue projections too conservative, my growth strategy too cautious. We spent 12 hours in her home office, deconstructing and rebuilding every aspect of the business model. By midnight, fueled by takeout and determination, we had something that made even Alexandra's cynical investment brain take notice. This could work, Livy, she said, leaning back in her chair. But you'll need seed money beyond what you have, and you'll need a technical co-founder to complement your business vision. I stared at the spreadsheets and mock-ups covering her desk. I can code. I've kept my skills current. Alexandra shook her head. You need someone who lives and breathes bleeding-edge development, someone who can build while you lead. She tapped her pen against her lips thoughtfully. Remember Michael Patel from CompSci? He just sold his security startup and mentioned he's looking for his next thing. Michael. Another ghost from my past. We'd dated briefly before I met Derek, remaining friends until my husband's subtle disdain for the tech crowd had created distance. I hadn't spoken to him in nearly a decade. He always said you were the most strategic thinker he knew, Alexandra continued. Want me to reach out? That night marked the first truly forward-looking decision I'd made in years. Within a week, Michael and I were outlining the technical architecture for what would become Horizon Tech. Alexandra had secured meetings with 3 potential investors from her firm, and I had traded grief for purpose, moving through my days with a clarity that had been absent for too long. The contrast between my personal and professional lives couldn't have been more stark. My apartment remained Spartan, with minimal furniture and bare necessities. I poured every spare dollar into business development, working 18-hour days from my kitchen table. While Derek posted photos of European getaways with Rachel on social media, I was filing incorporation paperwork and refining product specifications. 2 months into this new chapter, I received an invitation that tested my emerging strength. A housewarming party at Derek and Rachel's new home, a $1.2 million property in the exclusive Lakeview neighborhood. The invitation arrived in a cream envelope with gold embossing, Rachel's taste evident in every detail. My first instinct was to ignore it completely. Why subject myself to their happiness? But curiosity prevailed. There was something I needed to see for myself, not their home or their happiness, but my own reaction to it. Would I crumble? Or would I stand firm in my new identity? I RSVP'd. With a brief, Olivia Mercer will attend, knowing the formal acceptance would surprise them. They'd expected me to decline. sparing them the awkwardness while allowing them to say they'd extended the olive branch. The evening of the party arrived with perfect weather, warm with a gentle breeze that carried the scent of expensive landscaping through the neighborhood. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a simple black dress that conveyed dignified recovery rather than festive celebration. As I navigated the curved driveway lined with luxury vehicles, I felt a strange calm. This was merely reconnaissance, gathering intelligence on the life I'd been deemed unworthy to share. Rachel answered the door herself, momentarily flustered at finding me on her doorstep. Up close, she was even more striking than I'd imagined. Tall, impeccably styled, with the confident posture of someone who'd never questioned her place in the world. "Olivia, you came. How brave of you." Her smile was practiced, her eyes assessing my appearance with barely concealed relief at finding nothing to envy. "Congratulations on your beautiful home," I replied smoothly, handing her a small gift, bag containing an artisanal olive oil from the farmer's market. Nothing extravagant. I was saving my resources for more important investments. The house was exactly what I'd expected, professionally decorated, impeccably styled, and utterly impersonal. It resembled a luxury hotel more than a home, with no evidence of actual living taking place within its perfect rooms. Derek was holding court in the great room, surrounded by colleagues from Pinnacle. His double take when he spotted me gave me more satisfaction than I cared to admit. "Olivia," he exclaimed, disengaging from his audience to approach me. "I didn't think you'd come." "I wanted to wish you both well," I said, my voice steady. "Beautiful place." "Thank you." Pride swelled in his voice. "We're doing some renovations to the East Wing. Rachel's family has an incredible architect who's designing a solarium." I nodded politely, noting how quickly he'd adopted the language and priorities of Rachel's world. The man before me bore little resemblance to the ambitious but grounded graduate student I'd married. This version of Derek wore his newfound privilege like a second skin, eager to display the trappings of wealth that had always been just beyond our reach as a couple. For the next hour, I circulated through the party with practiced ease, accepting condolences disguised as compliments. "You look so well considering everything," and deflecting probing questions about my new life. I revealed nothing about Horizon Tech or my partnership with Michael. Let them believe I was surviving on alimony and freelance work. Their underestimation would make my eventual success all the sweeter. As I prepared to leave, having confirmed everything I needed to know about my emotional state, surprisingly intact, and their relationship, performative but seemingly committed, Derek cornered me near the front door. "I'm glad you came, Liv. I've been worried about you." The familiar nickname in his mouth felt like trespassing now. "I'm doing well, Derek. Better than expected." He nodded, relief evident in his expression. "Good. That's good. If you need anything—" "I don't," I interrupted gently. "But thank you." As I drove away from the house that could have been mine in another life, I felt neither jealousy nor regret, only a strengthened resolve. Derek and Rachel were playing a game I no longer had any interest in winning. Their vast house, with its East Wing renovations and imported furnishings, represented a finish line I'd stopped racing toward. My apartment might be small, and my future uncertain, but for the first time in 15 years, every decision I made served my own ambitions, rather than someone else's. That freedom was worth more than all the soaring ceilings and marble countertops money could buy. Little did Derek know that evening was the last time he would see poor Olivia, the discarded wife struggling to rebuild. The next time our paths crossed, I would be transformed in ways he couldn't possibly imagine. And that transformation began in earnest the very next morning, when Michael called with unexpected news that would accelerate everything we'd been planning. "Pinnacle is looking to acquire a tech solution for their wealth management division," he said without preamble. "Guess who's leading the search committee?" The name hung unspoken between us. Rachel Winters. The universe had a sense of humor after all. "How far along is our prototype?" I asked, already calculating possibilities. 6 weeks from minimum viable product. But Liv, they're looking to make a decision in 4. I closed my eyes, weighing options against risks. Then we have 4 weeks to create something that will make them choose us without knowing who's behind the company. "That's insane," Michael replied. "We'd need to work around the clock." "Is that a no?" His laugh carried a decade of familiarity. "You know it's not. I'm just saying we'll need help." That afternoon, I liquidated my remaining savings and took a calculated risk that would either launch Horizon Tech or bury it before it truly began. We hired 3 brilliant but undervalued developers who had been laid off in a recent tech downsizing. We converted my apartment into a makeshift office with workstations covering every available surface and whiteboards lining the walls. For 28 relentless days, we existed in a bubble of code, strategy, and takeout containers. I caught naps on my couch while algorithms compiled. Michael crashed on my floor when exhaustion overtook him. Our small team worked with the focused intensity that comes from having nothing to lose and everything to prove. On day 29, we submitted our bid to Pinnacle's search committee under the newly established Horizon Tech name, with me listed only as O. Carter, my mother's maiden name, in the ownership documents. The platform wasn't perfect, but it was innovative in ways that perfectly addressed the specific needs Pinnacle had outlined in their RFP. Details I understood intimately from years of listening to Derek's work challenges over dinner. Then we waited, running on caffeine and nervous energy as the decision deadline approached. The call came 3 days after Derek and Rachel's housewarming party. I was hunched over my laptop at 2 a.m., debugging code while Michael slept on my couch, when Alexandra's name flashed on my phone. "We've got interest," she said without preamble, her voice unusually animated for that hour. "Serious interest. Chen Ventures is prepared to offer seed funding. $3 million, based on the prototype and your business plan." The room seemed to tilt slightly as I processed her words. $3 million? Already? But we haven't even finished the MVP. "This isn't about the current product," Alexandra replied. "It's about the vision and the team. Specifically, it's about you, Livy. Thomas Chen remembers you from those pitch competitions in grad school. He's been following your freelance work for years, even the projects where you weren't credited. He says you've been undervalued for too long." Tears pricked at my eyes, not of sadness this time, but of validation. Someone had seen me, truly seen my capabilities, even when I'd been relegated to the background of my own life. "There's more," Alexandra continued. "The funding comes with conditions. They want exclusivity on future rounds, board representation, and—" She paused dramatically. "They want you to take the Horizon platform in a specific direction." My guard immediately. "Rose, what direction?" "Financial services tech, specifically targeting wealth management solutions for firms exactly like Pinnacle Investments." A laugh escaped me. Half disbelief, half vindication. "You told them about Derek." "I didn't have to. Boston's financial world is incestuous. Everyone knows everyone's business. Your ex-husband's rapid ascent with his wealthy new partner is common knowledge. Thomas Chen explicitly said that your intimate knowledge of Pinnacle's operations gives Horizon a competitive edge that no other startup in this space can match." I glanced at Michael's sleeping form on my second-hand couch. "So they're investing in my revenge fantasy?" Alexandra's voice softened. "They're investing in you, Olivia. The fact that success might also deliver some poetic justice is just a bonus. But if you're uncomfortable with the industry focus—" "I didn't say that," I interrupted, mind already racing with possibilities. For 15 years, I'd listened to Derek dissect Pinnacle's technological pain points over dinner. I knew exactly where their systems failed their clients, which processes remained frustratingly manual, and which solutions their leadership had consistently rejected as too expensive or disruptive. "Send me the term sheet. I'll wake Michael." The following morning, still riding the adrenaline high of potential funding, I received an unexpected text from Derek, just checking in. You seemed different at the party. Hope you're doing all right. Lunch sometime to catch up properly? The presumption was so typical that I needed his concern, that I'd welcome his company, that somehow we could have a friendly relationship where he inquired about my welfare while building a life with the woman he'd left me for. I deleted the message without responding. 3 weeks later, Horizon Tech secured its seed funding. The influx of capital transformed everything overnight. We moved from my apartment to proper offices in an up-and-coming tech district. We hired a development team, expanded our product roadmap, and engaged in targeted market research focusing exclusively on the needs of firms like Pinnacle. I transferred from my small rental apartment to a modest but comfortable condo closer to our new offices. Nothing extravagant. Most of my personal resources still went back into the company, but a significant upgrade from the post-divorce emergency housing. I bought actual furniture, hung artwork on the walls, and purchased proper dishes to replace the mismatched set I'd cobbled together from thrift stores. These small improvements to my living situation provided necessary stability, as Horizon consumed most of my waking hours. The rhythm of startup life proved both exhausting and exhilarating. 18-hour days punctuated by breakthrough moments and crushing setbacks. 6 months in, we faced our first major crisis. Our lead developer quit unexpectedly, taking an offer from a tech giant that could triple his salary. The next day, a key component of our prototype failed during a demonstration for potential clients. Michael and I worked for 36 hours straight to rebuild the system, subsisting on vending machine snacks and determination. Is this worth it? I asked during a rare moment of doubt, staring at code that refused to cooperate at 3 a.m. Are we crazy to think we can build something that competes with established fintech players? Michael's bloodshot eyes met mine across the conference table littered with empty coffee cups. Probably, he admitted with a weary smile. But that's never stopped the truly great companies. The question is whether you still believe in the vision. That was always the question that pulled me back from the edge. The vision wasn't just about building a successful company or proving something to Derek. It was about creating something meaningful from the ashes of my previous life. Something that reflected my values, my capabilities, and my understanding of what truly mattered. Despite the setbacks, Horizon gained traction. Our first beta clients reported promising results. Industry publications began mentioning us as ones to watch in the fintech startup space. Our team expanded to 15 people, then 25, all believers in what we were building. Meanwhile, snippets of Derek and Rachel's life continued to reach me through mutual acquaintances and social media. They'd gotten engaged, planning an extravagant destination wedding in the Maldives. Derek had been promoted to senior vice president at Pinnacle, a position observers noted came remarkably quickly after his relationship with Rachel began. They were building a second home in Aspen for seasonal retreats. Each update arrived like a bulletin from a foreign country I'd once visited, but no longer had any desire to return to. The details registered without emotion, data points rather, than triggers. I was too immersed in building my own world to orbit around theirs. On Horizon's 1-year anniversary, we celebrated a significant milestone, our first major client implementation. A mid-sized investment firm in Chicago had fully deployed our platform and reported a 27% increase in client satisfaction scores. The team gathered in our offices for champagne and commemorative t-shirts bearing our company logo and the phrase, Horizon, where visibility meets possibility. As the celebration wound down, Michael pulled me aside. "We need to talk about Pinnacle," he said quietly. My pulse quickened. "What about them?" "They've put out an RFP for exactly what we do. They're finally replacing their legacy wealth management systems, the ones Derek always complained about. The timing lines up perfectly with our next release." I set my champagne flute down carefully. Are you suggesting we bid on it? I'm suggesting we'd be idiots not to. This is what we've been building toward, Liv. You know their pain points better than anyone. We could tailor a solution that blows away the competition. That night, alone in my condo, I wrestled with competing instincts. Pursuing Pinnacle as a client made perfect business sense. They were exactly the type of firm our platform was designed for. Their name on our client roster would open countless doors in the industry, but the personal complications were undeniable. Derek was now SVP there. Rachel's family had significant influence with the board. Our history would inevitably color any business relationship, potentially creating complications for our young company. I called Alexandra, who listened to my concerns before cutting to the heart of the matter. Are you avoiding Pinnacle because it's not a good business move, or because you're afraid of facing Derek again? The question hung between us, demanding honesty I wasn't sure I possessed. Maybe both, I finally admitted. What if we fail? What if he uses his position to reject us, and I have to face that rejection all over again? Alexandra's response was characteristically blunt. Then you'll know he still has power over you. Is that what you want to believe about yourself? The answer, of course, was no. I'd spent 15 months rebuilding my life precisely to escape that power dynamic. Avoiding Pinnacle because of Derek would mean allowing him to constrain my business decisions just as he'd once constrained my personal ones. The next morning, I gathered our leadership team. We're bidding on the Pinnacle contract, I announced, and we're going to win it. For the next month, we operated like a military unit preparing for a crucial mission. I tapped into every memory of Derek's complaints about Pinnacle's systems, every casual comment about what would make clients' lives easier, every observation about what their competitors were doing better. We crafted a proposal that spoke directly to Pinnacle's unique challenges and opportunities, positioning Horizon not just as a vendor, but as a strategic partner in their digital transformation. The RFP response was submitted under Horizon Tech's corporate identity, with no indication of my personal connection to Pinnacle or its SVP. Michael would lead the initial presentations, with me joining only for the final stages if we made it that far. It wasn't about hiding. It was about ensuring our solution would be evaluated on its merits rather than complicated by personal history. 2 weeks later, we received the notification we'd made the shortlist. Pinnacle had narrowed the field, from 12 vendors to 3, with Horizon among the finalists. The next step would be an in-person presentation to their selection committee. Do you want me to handle this alone? Michael asked as we prepared our presentation materials. You could stay in the background until we're further along. I shook my head. No more hiding. Our solution is the best one for their needs. If they can't see past personal history to recognize that, they don't deserve what we've built. The presentation was scheduled for a Tuesday morning at Pinnacle's headquarters. I hadn't set foot in the building since attending a holiday party there with Derek 3 years earlier. As our car approached the gleaming tower, memories flickered at the edges of my consciousness. Arriving for corporate events on Derek's arm, waiting in the lobby while he ran upstairs, just for a minute, standing by his side at company functions, playing the role of supportive spouse. Michael squeezed my hand gently as we rode the elevator to the executive floor. Remember, you're not here as Derek Mercer's ex-wife. You're here as Olivia Carter, CEO of Horizon Tech. That's a whole different power position. We were escorted to a large conference room where the selection committee awaited us. 8 people sat around the polished table reviewing materials. My eyes immediately found Derek at the far end, his head still bent over the proposal document, unaware of our arrival. Beside him sat Rachel, now sporting a massive engagement ring that caught the light with every movement of her hand. The committee chair, a silver-haired woman I recognized as Eleanor Grant, the company's CTO, stood to greet us. Welcome, Horizon Tech. We've been quite impressed with your proposal. I'm Eleanor Grant, and I'll be leading today's discussion. As introductions continued around the table, Derek finally looked up. The color drained from his face so quickly I momentarily feared he might faint. Rachel's reaction was more controlled, but equally telling. Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows arched almost to her hairline before her features arranged themselves into a mask of professional neutrality. "And I'm Olivia Carter," I said when my turn came, voice steady and clear. "Founder and CEO of Horizon Tech. We're delighted to have this opportunity to show you how our platform can transform Pinnacle's wealth management operations." Derek's mouth opened slightly, then closed without producing sound. Rachel leaned toward him, whispering something that caused him to straighten in his chair. I noticed with detached interest that he'd aged in the past year and a half. New lines around his eyes, a slight softening beneath his jawline, a faint but noticeable recession of his hairline. Throughout our hour-long presentation, I maintained unwavering professionalism. No references to past connections, no inside knowledge that couldn't be attributed to thorough market research, no emotion beyond enthusiasm for our product's capabilities. Michael handled the technical deep dive while I focused on strategic alignment and implementation methodology. The question period that followed was rigorous but fair, with most committee members engaging thoughtfully with our proposal. Derek remained uncharacteristically silent, while Rachel asked several pointed questions about our company's stability and longevity as a partner. Thinly veiled attempts to highlight our youth and relative lack of track record. Horizon may be newer to the market, I acknowledged, meeting her gaze directly. But our team brings over 7 decades of combined experience in financial technology. We're backed by Chen Ventures with substantial capital reserves and our client retention rate is currently 100%, something the legacy providers on your shortlist can't claim. As the presentation concluded, Eleanor Grant walked us to the elevator. "That was impressive, Ms. Carter, particularly your insights into our client relationship workflows. That's a pain point other vendors haven't fully grasped." Understanding. "The human element of wealth management has always been my focus," I replied, pointedly not explaining where that understanding had originated. In the elevator, Michael let out a low whistle. "Well, that was intense. I thought Derek might spontaneously combust when you walked in." I surprised myself by laughing. "Did you see Rachel's face when I countered her stability question? Pure Ice Queen, but I caught the panic underneath." The big question is whether personal history will outweigh business sense in their decision. I leaned against the elevator wall, suddenly exhausted. We've done our part. The solution speaks for itself. If they choose an inferior product because Derek can't handle seeing me across a conference table, that's Pinnacle's loss. We expected the selection process to take weeks. Instead, Eleanor Grant called 3 days later. "Ms. Carter, I'll be direct. Your solution outperformed the competition in our technical evaluation by a significant margin. The user experience testing with our advisory team was particularly impressive." "Thank you," I replied cautiously, sensing a but approaching. "However," she continued, confirming my suspicion, "we've encountered some internal resistance to moving forward with Horizon. May I ask the nature of the resistance?" Eleanor paused briefly. "Let's just say certain executives have raised concerns about potential conflicts of interest given past associations. So Derek was blocking us, using his position to punish me professionally as he had personally. The familiar anger rose, but alongside it came something unexpected. Relief. At least now I knew exactly where we stood. "I understand," I said calmly. "Though I'm surprised a company of Pinnacle's stature would prioritize personal politics over client outcomes." Another pause, longer this time. "I didn't say the decision had been made, Ms. Carter. In fact, that's why I'm calling. The selection committee would like to invite you, specifically you, not your CTO, to a final closed-door meeting tomorrow morning. Just you and the committee principals." The invitation was unusual enough to raise both hope and suspicion. "May I ask what this meeting will cover?" Addressing the elephant in the room, frankly. This is an opportunity to convince the committee that past relationships won't compromise a potential partnership. I agreed to the meeting, then immediately called Alexandra. They know about Derek and me. He's trying to use it to block our bid. Of course he is, she replied matter-of-factly. He can't have his ex-wife becoming his vendor. Too much potential for embarrassment. Eleanor Grant has called me in for a special meeting. Just me, no Michael. Alexandra whistled softly. That's interesting. Grant has a reputation for cutting through politics. She's probably giving you a chance to neutralize Derek's objections. How do I do that? I can't erase our history. No, but you can reframe it. This isn't about convincing everyone you and Derek have no past. It's about convincing them your past won't affect Horizon's ability to deliver exceptional service. That night, I prepared more thoroughly than for any presentation in my life. I reviewed every aspect of our proposal, anticipated every possible objection, and practiced responses that acknowledged history without allowing it to dictate future business relationships. I selected my outfit with strategic precision, a charcoal gray suit that conveyed authority without aggression, paired with a blue silk blouse that subtly echoed Pinnacle's corporate colors. My jewelry was minimal but expensive, a signal of success without ostentation. Most importantly, I prepared mentally for facing Derek across a conference table where the power dynamic would be explicitly addressed rather than simmering beneath the surface. This time, I wouldn't be caught off guard by his presence or derailed by unexpected emotions. As my car approached Pinnacle headquarters the next morning, I felt a strange sense of closure approaching. Whatever happened in this meeting, it would mark the end of Derek's ability to influence my life trajectory. Either Horizon would win the contract despite his objections, or we would build our success elsewhere, free from his shadow entirely. Either way, I was no longer the woman who had left that building in tears 18 months earlier, shattered by betrayal. I was Olivia Carter, founder and CEO, author of my own destiny. And I was finally ready to close this chapter, whether through confrontation or liberation. The Pinnacle headquarters conference room was smaller this time, an intimate setting with just 4 people waiting for me. Eleanor Grant sat at the head of the table, flanked by the CFO Martin Weiss and the head of client services, Diane Forrester. At the far end, looking distinctly uncomfortable, sat Derek. Thank you for coming, Ms. Carter, Eleanor began as I took the empty seat across from Derek. As I mentioned on the phone, we have some unique circumstances to discuss before we can move forward with vendor selection. I nodded, maintaining composed eye contact. I appreciate the opportunity to address any concerns directly. Martin Weiss leaned forward, his expression carefully neutral. Ms. Carter, to be blunt, Mr. Mercer has raised concerns about potential conflicts due to your previous marriage. He believes this personal history could compromise a professional relationship. Derek shifted in his chair but remained silent, his eyes fixed on the document before him. I understand the concern, I replied evenly, and I appreciate the committee's willingness to discuss it openly rather than simply disqualifying Horizon on non-business grounds. Eleanor's mouth twitched in what might have been a suppressed smile. We're a business, Ms. Carter. We make decisions based on business criteria. However, we'd be remiss not to consider potential complications. May I speak candidly? I asked. Please do, Diane encouraged. I took a measured breath, organizing my thoughts. Yes, Derek and I were married for 15 years. Yes, our divorce was difficult. An understatement that caused Derek to finally meet my eyes. But I'm sitting here today not as Derek's ex-wife, but as the CEO of a company that has built the best wealth management solution on the market. A solution that, according to your own technical evaluation, outperformed all competitors. I turned directly to Derek. The question isn't whether we have a past. The question is whether either of us would allow that past to interfere with Pinnacle's success. I can unequivocally state that Horizon's performance will never be compromised by personal history. Our professional reputation means everything to us. Derek cleared his throat. It's not about your capabilities, Olivia. It's about avoiding complicated situations. There are qualified vendors without our baggage. With inferior solutions, Eleanor interjected mildly. According to our technical assessment, I leaned forward slightly. May I ask a direct question? If Horizon's proposal had come from a complete stranger, would there be any hesitation in selecting us as your vendor? The silence that followed was answer enough. What assurance can you provide, Martin finally asked, that working relationships won't become strained over time? Implementation requires close collaboration. Simple. I won't be involved in day-to-day implementation. My CTO, Michael Patel, will serve as your primary contact, with our implementation specialist, Renee Wong, handling on-site work. I'll remain at the executive oversight level, interfacing primarily with Ms. Grant. Eleanor nodded thoughtfully. That's a reasonable accommodation. Furthermore, I continued, I propose a special termination clause. If at any point during the first year Pinnacle believes personal history is interfering with service delivery, you can terminate the contract with no penalty and we'll facilitate transition to another vendor. Martin's eyebrows rose appreciatively. That's a significant concession. It's not a concession, I corrected firmly. It's a demonstration of confidence. We know our solution will deliver exceptional value. We're willing to remove every barrier to proving it. Derek leaned back, a familiar gesture that once signaled his recognition of being outmaneuvered. There's still the matter of perception. How will it look when people realize Pinnacle has hired the CEO's ex-wife as a vendor? I smiled slightly. I think it will look like Pinnacle prioritizes client outcomes over office politics. Hardly a damaging perception. The meeting continued for another 30 minutes, with detailed discussions of implementation timelines and success metrics. Throughout, I maintained calm professionalism, never allowing personal history to color my responses. As the meeting concluded, Eleanor walked me to the elevator, leaving the others behind. That was handled exceptionally well, she said quietly. Thank you for the opportunity to address the concerns directly. She studied me carefully. You've changed considerably since I last saw you at the company holiday party 2 years ago. Circumstances have a way of clarifying priorities, I replied. Indeed they do. She extended her hand. The committee will make its formal decision by the end of the week, but I think you can anticipate good news. In the elevator descending to the lobby, I allowed myself 10 seconds of pure elation, jumping slightly, fists clenched in silent victory, before composing myself for the public. Not just for potentially winning the contract, but for facing Derek as an equal, for refusing to be diminished by his presence, for transforming the narrative from abandoned wife to respected business leader. 3 days later, the official notification arrived. Horizon Technologies had been selected as Pinnacle's wealth management platform provider. The 2-year contract was worth $4.7 million, instantly transforming our company's financial projections and market position. That evening, we hosted an impromptu celebration at Horizon's offices. The team that had worked tirelessly on the Pinnacle proposal gathered for champagne and takeout, reveling in validation that our sacrifices had been worthwhile. To David slaying Goliath, Michael toasted, raising his plastic cup. To merit outweighing politics, I countered, clinking my cup against his. As the celebration continued around me, I stepped away to my office and closed the door. The magnitude of what we'd accomplished deserved a moment of private reflection. In 18 months, I'd gone from shell-shocked divorce casualty to founder of a company that had just landed a prestigious client against significant odds. My phone buzzed with an incoming text. I expected Alexandra with congratulations, but the sender was Derek. Committee overruled me. Congratulations. Hope this arrangement works out for everyone involved. The message was quintessential Derek, acknowledging defeat while emphasizing his opposition, extending superficial goodwill with an underlying note of skepticism. 18 months ago, I might have agonized over crafting the perfect response. Now, I simply deleted the message and returned to my celebrating team. The Pinnacle contract catalyzed Horizon's growth trajectory. Within weeks, 2 other financial firms approached us, intrigued by rumors that we'd won Pinnacle's business. By the 6-month mark of the Pinnacle implementation, we'd tripled our client roster and doubled our team size. With success came visibility. Industry publications featured Horizon as an emerging fintech player. I was invited to speak at conferences about digital transformation in wealth management. Our seed investors were delighted, and preliminary discussions about a Series A funding round valued the company at $30 million, a 10-fold increase from our initial valuation. My personal circumstances evolved in parallel with the company's success. I moved from my modest condo to a larger apartment in a desirable neighborhood, allowing myself a few carefully selected luxuries: quality furniture, occasional restaurant meals, a reliable car to replace my aging sedan. Still, I maintained financial discipline, reinvesting most of my growing resources into the company and saving aggressively. The memory of post-divorce financial vulnerability remained too vivid to ignore, a persistent reminder that circumstances could change without warning. 9 months into the Pinnacle contract, Eleanor Grant invited me to lunch at an upscale restaurant near their headquarters. "The implementation has exceeded expectations," she noted as we studied our menus. "Client satisfaction scores are up 32% since deployment. The board is pleased." "I'm glad to hear it," I replied. "Michael tells me the integration team has been exceptional to work with." She nodded, then set her menu aside, signaling a shift to more substantial matters. "I didn't invite you to lunch just to offer compliments, Olivia. I have a proposition to discuss." My guard instantly rose. "What kind of proposition?" "Pinnacle is considering an acquisition strategy to accelerate our digital transformation. Rather than building capabilities incrementally through vendor relationships, we're looking at bringing key technologies in-house." The implication was clear. "You want to acquire Horizon?" She smiled approvingly. "You don't waste time with unnecessary questions." "Yes, we're preparing an offer. The board has authorized me to open preliminary discussions." My mind raced with conflicting reactions. Acquisition could provide immediate wealth and security for the entire Horizon team. It would validate our technology at the highest level, but it would also mean surrendering control of our creation, potentially working within corporate constraints after tasting the freedom of entrepreneurship. "What would this mean for our team?" I asked, prioritizing the people who had taken a chance on Horizon. "Full retention with enhanced compensation packages. You and Michael would join the executive leadership, heading a new digital innovation division with considerable autonomy. And Derek." The question emerged before I could censor it. Eleanor's expression remained professional, but her eyes conveyed understanding. "That's a fair question. Derek would remain in his current role, heading a different division entirely. Your paths would rarely cross operationally." I took a sip of water, buying time to process this unexpected development. "This is obviously a significant proposition that requires careful consideration. What time frame are you thinking about?" "We'd like to move relatively quickly. The board meets in 6 weeks to approve major strategic initiatives for the coming fiscal year. Having an agreement in principle by then would be ideal." I nodded. "I'll need to discuss this with my co-founder and our investors, and we'd need to bring in proper M&A advisors to ensure we're evaluating the opportunity appropriately." "Of course," Eleanor signaled for the waiter. "Let's enjoy our lunch, and you can let me know when you're ready for more detailed discussions." That evening, I met with Michael at his apartment, away from curious ears at the office. His reaction mirrored my conflicted feelings. "Financially, it could be life-changing," he acknowledged, pacing his living room. But we'd be giving up control of our baby. We'd have leadership roles, I countered, heading innovation with resources we could only dream of as a startup. Under Pinnacle's umbrella, with their corporate politics and quarterly earnings pressure. He stopped pacing to face me directly. And let's address the elephant in the room. How do you feel about potentially working in the same company as Derek? And Rachel? The question hung between us, demanding honest examination. How did I feel? The prospect of regular encounters in the corporate cafeteria, awkward elevator rides, company-wide meetings where we'd pretend our history didn't exist, none of it appealed. But was discomfort reason enough to reject an otherwise compelling opportunity? I don't know, I admitted finally. Part of me thinks I shouldn't let Derek's presence influence a major business decision. Another part remembers how suffocating it felt to operate in his orbit, how easily I disappeared in his shadow. Michael nodded thoughtfully. Well, we don't have to decide tonight. Let's engage advisors, see what valuation they offer, and evaluate with clear heads. The following weeks brought intensive discussions with financial advisors, lawyers, and our investors. Thomas Chen from Chen Ventures was particularly vocal. The timing is premature, he argued during a conference call. Horizon is just beginning its growth curve. Selling now would capture maybe 40% of your potential value. But it eliminates market risk, countered Alexandra. Tech valuations are historically volatile. A guaranteed exit with strong terms has considerable merit. As these discussions progressed, Pinnacle's formal offer arrived. $27 million for 100% acquisition, with 3-year retention packages for key executives including Michael and me. The valuation was fair based on current metrics, if not generous. The fee, night before our deadline to respond, I found myself unable to sleep, wrestling with the decision. Around 3 a.m., I threw on a jacket and went for a walk through my quiet neighborhood, hoping physical movement might clarify my thoughts. The city streets were nearly empty, lending an unusual peacefulness to normally bustling areas. I wandered, without specific destination, mentally listing pros and cons for perhaps the 100th time. Acquisition meant financial security I'd never imagined possible after the divorce. It meant validation of our technology and vision. It meant resources to accelerate development beyond what we could achieve independently. It also meant corporate constraints, reporting structures, and the shadow of Derek's presence, however distant our respective departments might be. As dawn approached, I found myself at a small park overlooking the harbor. The first hints of sunrise painted the sky in delicate pinks and oranges, reflecting on the water's surface. I sat on a bench, watching the gradual transformation from night to day, when a realization emerged with unexpected clarity. I wasn't ready to surrender my independence. Not again. My marriage had taught me the subtle cost of operating in someone else's ecosystem, of adjusting my ambitions to fit within parameters I hadn't established. The divorce had forced me to reclaim agency over my life and decisions. Horizon represented not just professional success but personal sovereignty. By the time I returned to my apartment, my decision was firm. I called Michael, who answered despite the early hour. "I don't want to sell," I said without preamble. "Not to Pinnacle. Not now." His response came after only the briefest pause. "I was hoping you'd say that. I don't either. It means walking away from life-changing money. It means believing we can create even more value independently," he corrected, "and maintaining control of our destiny." That afternoon, I met Eleanor Grant at her office to deliver our response personally. She received the news with professional grace. "May I ask what drove your decision?" she inquired after I'd declined their offer. "Horizon is just beginning its journey," I explained. "We believe we can create greater value for our team, our investors, and ultimately our clients by remaining independent through our next growth phase." She studied me thoughtfully. "And there were no personal factors in your decision?" The question invited dishonesty. a polite fiction we could both pretend to believe. Instead, I chose transparency. Personal and professional considerations are rarely completely separable, I acknowledged, but this decision was primarily about Horizon's future, not my past. Eleanor nodded. I respect your choice, though I'm disappointed by the outcome. Pinnacle will remain a client and supporter of Horizon's growth. As I left Pinnacle's building, I felt an unfamiliar lightness. For the first time since the divorce, I had made a major life decision without Derek's shadow influencing the outcome, not by conscious rejection of what he represented, but by focusing entirely on what I wanted to build. The following weekend, Alexandra invited me to her vacation home on the coast, a rare opportunity to step away from Horizon's demands for a few days of reflection. I was surprised by your decision, she admitted as we walked along the beach. But I understand it. You're playing a longer game. Is that what I'm doing? I asked, half joking. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just being stubborn. Stubborn would be rejecting the offer because Derek works there. Strategic is recognizing that Horizon has greater potential than what Pinnacle offered. She stooped to collect a perfect sand dollar. But having made this choice, you need to be thinking about the next phase. Series A funding, expanded client acquisition, possible international markets. I recited our growth strategy. Alexandra handed me the sand dollar. I meant personally as well as professionally. You've established your company. You've faced down your ex-husband as a business equal. You've rejected the easy exit to pursue a bigger vision. What does success look like for Olivia Carter beyond Horizon's valuation? The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on survival, then revenge, then validation, that I'd given little thought to what might follow. I don't know, I admitted. For so long, it's been about proving something. To Derek, to myself, to everyone who might have pitied the abandoned wife. I'm not sure I know who I am beyond that narrative yet. Then maybe that's your next frontier, Alexandra suggested. Finding out who you are when you're no longer defined by what happened to you, but by what you're creating. That evening, seated on Alexandra's deck overlooking the ocean, I began a list in my journal. Beyond revenge, what Olivia wants. The items emerged slowly at first, then with increasing clarity. A home that truly reflected my taste, not chosen for proximity to an office or as a status symbol for someone else's career. Travel undertaken for pleasure, not business development. Perhaps even cautious exploration of dating again, though that prospect remained more theoretical than appealing. Most surprising was a desire I hadn't acknowledged before. A home substantial enough to eventually accommodate my aging parents, who had supported me unwaveringly through the divorce despite living across the country. A place with space for family gatherings, for holidays, for creating new memories to replace those tainted by betrayal. As this vision took shape in my imagination, I realized it represented more than material acquisition. It symbolized reclaiming the future I'd been planning with Derek before Rachel entered the picture. But on my terms, created through my success, reflecting my values rather than his ambitions. 3 days after returning from Alexandra's beach house, I received an unexpected call from Thomas Chan himself. Olivia, I've been thinking about Horizon's next phase, he began without preamble. Rejecting Pinnacle's offer was the right move, but it means we need to accelerate growth to justify that decision. I agree. We're already expanding the sales team and... I'm not talking about incremental growth, he interrupted. I'm talking about transformative expansion. My team has identified an acquisition target that would be strategically perfect for Horizon. Acquisition? I repeated, startled. We're nowhere near the size to be acquiring other companies. Normally, no. But this is a unique situation. Meridian Analytics is a data science firm specializing in predictive modeling for investment strategies. Their technology would integrate perfectly with your platform, creating a comprehensive offering no competitor could match. My mind raced with possibilities. Meridian has to be worth at least twice what we are. How could we possibly make this work financially? Their founder is facing health challenges and wants a quick exit with the right strategic partner. More importantly, Thomas continued, his voice taking on a particular emphasis, their client list includes Westbrook Financial. The significance wasn't lost on me. Westbrook was Pinnacle's largest competitor, a firm that had been trying to recruit Derek for years before Rachel's family connections secured his position at Pinnacle. If we acquired Meridian, I said slowly, processing the implications, we'd have both Pinnacle and Westbrook as clients. We'd be the technology backbone for two of the largest wealth management firms in the country. Precisely. Instead of being absorbed by Pinnacle, you'd be the independent platform powering both giants. Chen Ventures is prepared to lead a special funding round specifically for this acquisition. The vision was audacious but compelling. Send me the details. We'll need to move quickly if the founder's health is a factor. That night, reviewing Meridian's financials and technical specifications, a new path forward crystallized in my mind. Not just building Horizon as a successful startup, but creating an industry-leading platform that would transform wealth management technology, a company that would make my connection to Derek irrelevant, not just personally, but professionally. The potential acquisition represented something I hadn't fully permitted myself to imagine, a future where success wasn't measured by comparison to what Derek had taken from me, but by what I was building for myself. A future where my story wasn't defined by abandonment, but by creation. As I closed my laptop in the early morning hours, I found myself browsing real estate listings, not for practical reasons, but as tangible visualization of the future taking shape. Homes with space for family gatherings, properties with guest suites for visiting parents, houses that reflected achievement without requiring external validation. A particular listing caught my attention, a newly renovated estate in an exclusive neighborhood, the kind of property I would have once viewed as unattainable. But the financial projections of a combined Horizon Meridian entity told a different story. With the right execution, such a home could be within reach within a year. I bookmarked the listing, not as immediate possibility, but as concrete representation of a goal. A reminder that revenge might have provided initial motivation, but creation would be my lasting legacy. The Meridian Analytics acquisition moved with unexpected speed. Within 6 weeks of Thomas Chen's initial call, we had signed a letter of intent. Their founder, Dr. James Wilson, was battling an aggressive form of lymphoma and prioritized a quick, clean exit to focus on treatment without worrying about his company's future. Your vision for integrating our predictive analytics with Horizon's platform makes perfect sense, he told me during our first meeting, his once robust frame diminished by illness, but his mind still razor-sharp. Most potential acquirers would dismantle what we've built for parts. You understand its true value. The due diligence process revealed an organization with brilliant technology but operational challenges that explained their willingness to sell at a relatively modest valuation. Their burn rate was unsustainable. Key talent was departing due to uncertainty about Dr. Wilson's health, and they'd allowed several patents to lapse through administrative oversight. These fixable problems represented opportunity. With Chen Ventures leading a special-purpose $18 million funding round, we acquired Meridian for $22 million, a price that would have been impossible had circumstances been different. The technical integration began immediately, with Michael leading a task force of engineers from both companies to create a seamless product. My focus turned to client retention and cross-selling. Westbrook Financial, Pinnacle's chief rival and Meridian's largest client, represented both opportunity and delicate politics. Bringing them into the Horizon ecosystem while maintaining our relationship with Pinnacle would require careful navigation. I'll never forget my first meeting with Catherine Westbrook, the formidable CEO who had built her father's regional investment firm into a national powerhouse. Her corner office offered panoramic views of the city, artifacts of her extensive global travels displayed with curated precision. "So you're the ex-wife," she remarked after preliminary introductions, studying me with undisguised interest. "I've been curious about you since hearing Pinnacle selected your platform over established vendors." The directness was jarring but oddly refreshing. "I prefer to be known as Horizon's founder and CEO," I replied with a smile to soften the correction. "But yes, Derek Mercer and I were previously married." Catherine laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her severe features. "Direct. Good. I can't abide corporate tiptoeing around uncomfortable truths." She gestured toward an elegant seating area. "Tell me why I should trust my client's data to a company that's just swallowed another firm whole. Integration failures are the rule, not the exception." For the next hour, I outlined our technical and operational integration strategy, emphasizing the complementary nature of our technologies and our commitment to service continuity. Catherine interrupted frequently with incisive questions that revealed both deep technical knowledge and a shrewd understanding of wealth management dynamics. "You've thought this through," she conceded as our discussion concluded. "But let's address what you're dancing around. You now serve both Pinnacle and Westbrook. We're direct competitors with considerable bad blood. How do you propose to manage those competing interests?" I'd anticipated this concern. "Data isolation is absolute and contractually guaranteed. Different server environments, different support teams, different development paths when customization is required. More importantly, I have no interest in being caught between warring financial giants. Our value proposition is being the neutral technology platform that powers industry innovation regardless of which logo is on the building." Catherine studied me for a long moment. "Derek tried to recruit me to Pinnacle for years, you know, before he partnered with the Winters girl. This was unexpected. I didn't know. I declined because I found his approach fundamentally transactional. Everything and everyone was a means to an end." Her gaze remained evaluative. "You don't strike me as transactional, Olivia Carter. Ambitious? Yes. Strategic, certainly. But there's something else there." "Purpose," I suggested after a thoughtful pause. "I'm building something meant to last, as opposed to someone who simply attaches himself to established power." Her smile was knowing. "Westbrook will maintain our relationship with the new Horizon Meridian entity, with expanded implementation of the combined platform. My technical team has your integration roadmap. Meet those milestones and we'll discuss expansion to our Asian offices next quarter." As I left Westbrook headquarters, a notification popped up on my phone. My realtor had sent new property listings matching my increasingly specific criteria. Among them was a stunning contemporary estate in Oak Ridge Heights, the city's most prestigious neighborhood. 5 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows capturing mountain and water views, all situated on 2 meticulously landscaped acres. The listing price, $2.5 million. 6 months ago, such a property would have been an impossible fantasy. Now, with Horizon's valuation soaring post-Meridian acquisition and our expanded client base including both Pinnacle and Westbrook, it represented an audacious but achievable goal, particularly if our Series B funding closed at the projected valuation. I saved the listing to my favorites, a concrete visualization of the future I was building. Not just professional success, but personal renaissance. A home that would represent complete transformation, from the woman who had once stood in an empty apartment surrounded by moving boxes, wondering how to rebuild. The following months brought ceaseless work as we integrated Meridian's technology and team into Horizon's operations. 16-hour days became routine. I practically lived at our offices, often sleeping on the couch in my executive suite rather than returning to my apartment. The challenge energized rather than depleted me. Each solved problem, each successful client implementation, each new hire representing another step toward the vision taking shape. By the 9-month mark post-acquisition, we had achieved what industry analysts considered impossible: full integration of Meridian's predictive analytics into Horizon's wealth management platform, with enhanced functionality rather than compromised performance. Our client base had expanded to 17 major financial institutions. Our team had grown to 140 people across 3 offices. More personally meaningful was the shift in how Horizon was perceived and how I was regarded within the industry. Financial technology publications that had once described us as the promising startup led by Derek Mercer's ex-wife now referenced me as visionary CEO Olivia Carter, while mentioning Horizon's meteoric rise. Speaking invitations arrived weekly. Recruitment firms called regularly with executive opportunities I had no interest in pursuing. On the 2nd anniversary of Horizon's founding, a milestone that coincided almost exactly with the finalization of my divorce 3 years earlier, we gathered the entire company for a celebration at an upscale hotel venue. The contrast between this elegant affair and our first anniversary's pizza and beer gathering in our original cramped office was striking. "I have something special to share," I announced after thanking the team for their extraordinary work. "This morning, we received confirmation that our Series B funding round has closed, with a final valuation of $110 million. The room erupted, in cheers and applause. For many team members, this represented life-changing increases in their equity value. For the company, it provided resources to accelerate our expansion plans and product roadmap. Additionally, I continued when the excitement subsided, I'm pleased to announce that Michael Patel is being promoted to President and Chief Operating Officer, recognizing his leadership in our technical integration and product development. Michael joined me at the microphone, his steady presence having been my most reliable support through Horizon's growth. "We've accomplished extraordinary things these past 2 years," he addressed the team. "But we're just getting started." As the celebration continued around me, Thomas Chen approached with 2 glasses of champagne. "To creating something meaningful," he toasted quietly, echoing words I'd spoken months earlier. "I've been meaning to thank you," I said, accepting the glass. "For seeing potential in Horizon when it was just an idea born from difficult circumstances." "I didn't just see potential in Horizon," he corrected. "I saw potential in you. There's a particular clarity that comes from having to rebuild your life, a focus that comfortable people rarely achieve." His observation resonated uncomfortably. Had my divorce actually catalyzed the determination that fueled Horizon's success? Would I have discovered this capacity for creation without first experiencing destruction? The following morning, still contemplating Thomas's